Red Dead Redemption 2 is the latest entry from Rockstar Games, a developer known for its excellent storytelling and amazing attention to detail, while the game has number 2. In its title, it is actually a prequel to 2020's hit game Red Dead Redemption. That game tells the story of a former outlaw named John, who has settled down with his family after leaving his former gang when the government tracks him down and takes his wife and son hostage. John is forced to hunt the remaining members of his former gang in order to bring them to justice and secure his family's freedom. RDR 2 tells the story of the downfall of the gang years before the events of the first game. Instead of playing as John Marston, you play as another member of the gang named Arthur Morgan. Through Arthur's eyes, you learn what John's former gang is actually like and why John and his family end up living in the end. Along the way, you get a sense for what life as an outlaw was like in the Old West, as well as what life was like in America at the turn of the century over 100 years ago. I recently played and completed Red Dead 2 for the second time and wanted to share my thoughts on the game prior to Red Dead. I had never played the game from Rockstar. I knew about the GTA series as well as the first Red Dead Redemption, but they never really interested me. When Red Dead 2 released in October of 2018, I was convinced by my cousin to pick up the game and give it a shot. When I first started playing the game, I found the pace to be a bit too slow and the controls to be very clunky and unresponsive. However, I found the story to be very interesting, so I continued with the game so I could see more of it. As the game progressed and I got used to the controls, I started to get really into the game. The pacing improved and the story continued to get better and better. By the end of my playthrough, I had come to fully enjoy the game despite some of the issues I still had. Before I begin my full review, I just want to give two quick disclaimers. First, I just want to reiterate that Red Dead 2 is still the only Rockstar game that I have played. While I do plan on playing the first Red Dead at some point, I have yet to do so. As a result, I will not be making comparison to other Rockstar games. My review will be looking at RD2 as a standalone game. The second disclaimer involves story spoilers. While I will not be discussing specific story events, I will be discussing certain story aspects that some people may view as spoilery, such as the game's epilogue. I feel that this is necessary in order to truly explain my feeling about Red Dead 2 story. If you want to go into this game knowing nothing about the story other the general plot, I encourage you to use timestamps in the description to skip to other section of my review. With that out of the way, let us get into the story. It's one of the most important things I look for in video games are a great medium for storytelling because you are able to actively participate in the story. Some games let you to specific dialogue option, while others that you choose specific action that can affect the world around you. While not every game needs a great story, good story is definitely something I value in most games. The story in RDR 2 is one of the best I have experienced in a video game. When you look at the cover art for the game, you might just think this is another typical Western adventure that could not be more wrong. RDR 2 was all about family, loyalty, and chasing a dream for a better life. It is a tragedy about what happens when things go wrong and loyalties get tested. While most of the main characters are outlaws who steal from the rich, they aren't necessarily bad people. The game brings humanity to what are essentially criminals and explores what some people will do to obtain a better life. The story begins in the aftermath of a failed operation by the Vanderlyn gang over the course of the game, the gang spent several months recovering from that incident, trying to make enough money to finally head west and create their dream lives. Along the way, all of the characters experienced a lot of heartache and hardship, as well as some moments of happiness and celebration. In the fact, the characters were a big part of the makes the story so great. You develop emotional ties to the different members of the gang, sharing is in both their pain and their joy when something happens in the story. You actually want to hear how the different characters react. I think it is a very difficult thing to make a player care about characters beyond just the main ones, and Red Dead 2 achieves the beautifully. While I was invested in the supporting cast, my favorite characters all come from the main cast. The gang is led by a man named Dutch Wanderlin, the charismatic leader who preaches about how the government is killing the American dream of freedom. He assembled his gang by helping people who have either been wronged by others or who are down on their luck, promising them a better future. The other members of the gang look to him as source of strength in a world where they feel rejected and cast out. Dutch, surrounded by a group of outlaws that have gone for various reasons at different points in time. The longest tournament members include Hosea Matthews, who was a master con artist, John Marston, who was the main character of the original RDR, and Arthur Morgan, who was the main character of Red Dead. John and Arthur were both teenage orphans that were taken in by Dutch, who think of them as his sons. Other members include Cheryl Smith, Bill Williams, Mike Belksaber, Lenny Summers, and Sadie Adler. These characters all have their own distinctive personalities that sometimes clash with one another, but they are all united by their belief in Dutch's cause. One of the things that makes these characters so great beyond being part of a well-written story is the voice acting. The performance for each of these characters is fantastic, helping to bring life to these characters in very meaningful, and improvement was when Dutch gives a speech. I find myself inspired when Hosea provides his wisdom, and inside I feel confident that our plan is going to work. When Misha makes a smartest comment, I want to punch him in the face. Each character is voiced so well, adding to the emotion of the story. The story itself is broken up into 8 chapters, 6 main ones, and the epilogues, as I mentioned before. RDR 2 is about the downfall of the Wanderling gang. Each chapter covers a specific series of events that contribute to that downfall, while they sometimes have missions spanning multiple areas. Each chapter generally focuses on one area of the map, which is different in each chapter. Some of the locations you will be exploring include open plains, southern plantation, and industrial cities. This diversity of location and the uniqueness of the quests in these areas helps keep the game feeling fresh. Red Dead 2 is an open world game, so you can visit this location at any time. However, certain quests will only become available after you have progressed enough in the main story. In addition to the main and supporting characters I have already discussed, is a wide range of interesting characters that you meet through the main story and inside quests. These people represent the diversity of American society during the late 1800s and help it bring to life different stages of the industrial age. There is wealthy men looking to buy up land in the West in order to expand their business empires, and Native Americans trying to protect their people from the encroachment of America. There are simple farmers and immigrants trying to start a new life on an American frontier that is slowly disappearing. These characters help you understand what the Vandal and game is fighting for, as well as what they are fighting against. By the end of the 6 chapters, you learn the ultimate fate of the Vandal and gang, as well as why John and his family end up living. The 2 epilogue chapters essentially serve as link between the events of RD2 and the first RDR. Instead of playing as Arthur Morgan, you were actually thrust into the role of John Marston. Set several years after the 6 main chapters, the epilogue shows John settling down and starting a new life because he is no longer in the gang. The tone of the epilogue is very different from the rest of the game. Instead of trying to steal from rich people, you look for ways to make some legitimate money. You get to see John struggle with trying to leave behind his outlaw past so he can create a better life for his family. It is an homage to the first RDR. In the last section, I talked about how great the stories and chapters are in both the main quests and side quests, but what exactly do you do during these missions? While many of them incorporate shootouts in one form or another, they also have you doing a lot of other tasks. Some missions have you stealth away to your objective, others have you driving a carriage or setting fire to a field of crops. Some even have doing things as simple as fixing the wheel of a wagon. The game has you perform any number of different activities to keep things fresh and keep you engaged. Many of these missions also involve you riding on your horse while you talk to another members of the gang. These parts can sometimes be a bit too long and slow things down too much, but the banter between the characters during these missions is usually entertaining and informative. Many of these quests are heavily scripted, which means you will need to perform fairly specific action or meet certain requirements before completing the mission. Sometimes you are given a bit of freedom during missions in terms of how you complete your objective, but generally the game wants you to do things, and that does it for this review. I highly recommend picking up RDR2 even if you have not played the original game. The story is one of the best I have seen in a video game, and it does a great job of introducing you to all the characters and the world of Red Dead. It is a beautiful game to look at and explore, and it makes feel like a real gunslinger. Well, I have discussed a couple aspects of the game. I wish they had handled differently. These issues are ultimately minor compared to the greatness of the game.